All right, cool. So it's nice to be the first speaker here. I hope you are all comfortable. You have had your water and everything because it's very hot outside. So let's get started. Blockchains that evolve with your business. It's a little bit of, you can say, like oxymoron, like because we know blockchains generally are slow to evolve. And that is what I'm going to talk about today, like why they are slow to evolve, how to make them evolve at a faster stage. With that, quick introduction. So I'm Gautam Dhameja. I work at Parity Technologies as a solutions delivery director, mostly focusing on helping parachain builders build their chains. Now, let's get into it. So, do you know what is similar in these three things that I have on my screen right now? Any guesses? People, time, and climate. So we all want to be the better version of ourselves. So we want to change. People change. Time keeps changing. We all know that. I have 29 minutes left now. 1 minute ago, I had 30 minutes left. And climate, it's 41 degrees outside. So climate is also changing. So things change. But blockchains don't. They are slow with the pace. So that's the problem we are trying to solve here. How can we make blockchains change fast? It is basically very, very hard to upgrade blockchains. When you look at it from a software development perspective, it's all about agility. It's all about, how can we get our user and customers the better version of the software as fast as possible. But when you start building on a blockchain on the current existing platforms, it's not so easy to give them the latest features, to give them everything that they need, and be at a faster pace to the market. So it's hard to upgrade blockchains. It's hard to give your users the best of time and money and effort when you use existing blockchain solutions. Now, sometimes you have to change some things, even when you are building blockchains. Sometimes you need to have a protocol update that is coming in. Potentially, you might want to change some layout, you want to change some rules, you want to change how the users interact, how the incentives are coming in, and so on. The other time, you just want to optimize a few things, depending on how the gas market looks like, depending on how the transactions are being processed. Every single time there is some new innovation coming into the picture, you want to incorporate that innovation into your solution. So you want to optimize. Sometimes we make mistakes, so we want to fix the bugs. We want to, address those issues and create a new version of the system. And finally, last but not the least, users. They come with requests. They want us to do better. And we have to respect and acknowledge those requests and build the system for them. Everything that we are building are for the users, right? It's not for us. So we have to respect that. So feature requests. All of these things, if you look at the common denominator, they ask you to update your blockchain at a particular frequency, at a particular stage of solution development. Now, that is where, this is the source of the change. Now, what could change? What could be the target of the change? You could have your business logic changed. You could have the incentives changed. You could have basically governance changed on your chain. You might want to, basically optimize the data and the layout on the system. This is the target. This is where you have to make those changes that are needed. And finally, sometimes the technology itself changes. The underlying technology of how the nodes connect with each other, how the nodes interact with each other, how the consensus is reached, all of those things keep changing. So you have to incorporate those changes in your solution as well. You have to basically respect those changes. So there is a lot that can trigger a change, and there is a lot that needs to change. Now let's take some examples, take some scenarios on how it all comes into the picture. So I'm taking the first scenario of upgrading a blockchain from a crypto-native space. Let's say you have a DeFi protocol, and this protocol wants to introduce some new rules. And to introduce those new rules, you will have to make some changes to the schema. How does it look when you want to actually build, or you can say deploy the next version of this platform. You first have to upgrade your smart contracts that are already running the previous protocol or previous version of your DeFi platform. The second step, of course, you have to migrate the data. The third step, again, you have to basically test, deploy, audit, and do a bunch of these things. So this takes time. This takes a lot of time. And looking at some of the recent, you can say, examples, some of the DeFi protocols have taken years to update from version 2 to version 3 and so on, because it takes time. Let's take another example, this time a little bit of an enterprise side of things. Let's say a supply chain solution. And this solution basically requires you to add a new entity in the business. A new vendor or a new manufacturer wants to participate in the supply chain. What you have to do is basically you have to add some new parameters, you have to integrate with some new systems, and you have to upgrade your smart contracts. Again, the same process. And it takes time. It eventually introduces a lot of lag in business process and technical process. So these are some of the issues that we see when we want to upgrade a blockchain-based solution, and how it impacts the business or how it impacts the users. So that was the technology aspect of things. Now let's talk about the people aspect of things. So blockchains are decentralized. There is no admin. There is no one single person who would push a button and something would change across the whole network. The second thing is, it is extremely, extremely hard to find alignment when there are multiple people involved. There are some networks out there who have not changed much in the last many, many years, because it is hard to actually write some roadmap down in a Google Doc and then try to implement that on chain. You need to find a way to actually enact that roadmap while getting consensus on it as well. So that is where the people aspect of thing comes into the picture. So on one side, the people aspect, the network stakeholders, the developers, everyone who is involved in making a decision is not getting the right tools to take those decisions, to enact laws based on those decisions. And on the other side, it's the technology itself that does not support change. So what do we do about it? Let's think for a moment that if we want to solve both these problems, if we want to essentially make blockchains really evolve with the users, with the use cases, with the market, what does it need? What would it require, essentially? So the first thing is, you want to have a consensus or the governance mechanism that can basically allow users to participate in a much, much faster and much, much verifiable manner. So you need some sort of an on-chain governance. The second thing is, when the blockchain gets updated, people have to download a new node and a bunch of other things. You might want to solve that. The upgrade of the technology should be so seamless that nobody should have to download the new node, redeploy it, connect to a fork of the chain, and so on. Nothing should be needed. It should be seamless. So you need some way of doing a forkless upgrade. The third thing that you want to do is, you might want to have least impact on your users. When the data gets migrated from one smart contract to the other, when the exchanges have to upgrade their smart contract addresses to connect to the new version of your application, it takes a lot of time, and it creates a lot of disruption on their side. So how do you make that simple? How do you make that seamless? You want some automated storage transitions so that when your chain upgrades, the data automatically is associated with the new version of the chain. And finally, when you are making some change, it should not be like when you're trying to create a very new version of your system and there is a huge gap between the old version and the new version. It's just not possible to actually continue with the same thought process or continue with the same solution. You will have to, most of the time what you have to do is start from scratch. And that creates even more gap between the time to market and between the user experience. So you need extensibility so that whatever you are building on can be easily extended for building the next version as well. So these I consider as the 4 pillars of evolving blockchains. If you have these, you should not have to worry about making your blockchains as per your users in the least amount of time. So How do we make this possible? Is there a way to do that today? Most of you are from the Polkadot ecosystem. You know that we have Substrate. What Substrate allows is each of these things in a very, very highly optimized manner. Let's take each of those things and look at how Substrate makes it possible, how Substrate supports each of these 4 pillars for evolving blockchains. So the first one is on-chain governance. So there are inbuilt modules, inbuilt palettes. Now we call them palettes. They are available in Substrate to allow all kind of on-chain governance. You can basically go from a simple council-based governance to a democracy to basically, scored pool kind of approach where everybody gets a score and so on. And essentially, your users can participate in a governance process that can be easily verifiable. It can be performed on the chain, and the outcome can be enacted on the chain very quickly. So that's the first pillar, on-chain governance, inbuilt in Substrate. The second one, you must have seen this diagram quite a few number of times by now, but the forkless upgrades part, essentially, all of the core, you can say, business logic of a Substrate chain lives inside a WASM blob. And you can simply just update a new WASM blob based on the governance process that you are following. So if you are following a council governance process and you just want to upgrade your chain, if this council agrees, you can literally upgrade this WASM blob, set the new code, and your chain becomes in the new version. Nobody has to download a new node. Nobody has to basically connect to a fork of the chain or anything. It just happens. It's so seamless. So the second version, or the second pillar of evolving blockchains, forkless upgrades. Again, built in Substrate. Now, this is something interesting, like the automated storage migrations. We generally don't, highlight this too much, but this is something extremely important from user experience perspective. Think of, like the same example that I gave before, the DeFi-related example. This basically, the rules were changing, the data had to be migrated, the schema was changing, and so on, and the users had to migrate their data. In this case, when you use Substrate and you upgrade your chain, you can simply write your migrations, run the upgrade, and those migrations can run on a hook that can just simply migrate the data to the new schema. Your users don't have to worry about it. Your exchanges don't have to worry about it. It just simply happens as part of the upgrade process. So the third pillar, automated storage migrations, also built into Substrate. And finally, extensibility. If you just have a black box node, let's say in any other blockchain platform, and all you have is you can just update your smart contracts on it, and it's not very friendly for extensibility. You will have to upload new smart contracts. But when it comes to Substrate, it's a pure white box approach. You can just simply have any part of Substrate, extended to a new or different version as per your needs. You can also have pluggable consensus. You can also have an upgradable runtime. You can also, have your own crypto suite out of, based on your requirements and so on. So it's like, you can plug and play pretty much anything into Substrate and it just works. So you don't have to do a lot of things from scratch. You don't have to, design anything from scratch. It's just there. There is a skeleton out there and you just have to, fill the meat in it and you are good to go. So the fourth pillar, extensibility, which allows you to quickly design and upgrade your blockchain solution, also built into Substrate. So if we look at these 4 aspects, all of those 4 essentially are available as part of Substrate. And this is the power of evolving blockchains. Your users, your exchanges, your wallets, nobody has to worry about it. So essentially, when you use Substrate, when you are building in the Polkadot ecosystem, it is really not that hard to upgrade blockchains anymore. It's really straightforward. If you are following the right governance process, if you are looking at the right ways of upgrading your blockchain, then it's really, really seamless. And it gives you and your users much better experience. Your developers much better experience. Now let's take a look at some stats. Most of you can say the topic that I wanted to cover is done, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek on some stats. So in the last few months, in the Substrate or in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystems, we have done 100 forkless upgrades without any fork, without any issues with any users. It just went well. We have had more than 1,400 actively participating users to participate in making decisions about these upgrades, like participating in referendum, what should happen on the chain and what should not happen, and so on. And if you look at the entire ecosystem that we have in Polkadot and Kusama, we have had 621 forkless upgrades, and even more because this data is a little old. And it just went fine. Every chain gets to upgrade itself at the time when they need, at the time when their users want, and it just works. So that is basically evolving blockchains for you. Thank you for listening. Any questions? I have one question at the back.
I was going to ask, so when data's changing over time as you upgrade and you're migrating the nodes storage like automatically, do you provide supporting tools to the dApps that use the chain as well to manage those kind of migrations, or is that expected to be dealt with from the dApp side?
So first of all, there is, you can say, very small impact on the dApp side. There is no address changing. There is no, you can say, interface changing, or pretty much like if there are external interfaces changing, then we do communicate, we do let them know, and we update the libraries as well so that, you know, the dApps, those who are connecting to the node, are able to use the latest version of the libraries for API-related things. But when it comes to the on-chain logic, there is really, really minimal impact unless we are changing the signature of the functions. Not the cryptographic signature, the you know, like parameters and stuff. And in that case, yes, there are, you can say, there is something known as metadata in Substrate, which automatically gets updated on any runtime upgrade. And the dApps can easily, you know, like use the latest metadata. So there is definitely tooling available for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then. That's it. Thank you so much.